Welcome back, folks. We're gonna get started about a minute or two past the hour. Going to give a chance, folks, to get signed in and to get in. But since you're here in the classroom early, are there any questions that anybody would like to ask before we get started up? Mirabelle, yeah,
Could we just do a quick overview of file structures or
yep,
folder structures?
yes, absolutely. So I'm actually gonna what we're gonna be talking about today. We just switched this up, so this was not on the not up on the outline. We're actually going to be creating some skills today, so we're going to start with actually creating some subdirectories. So you'll be able to sort of see that from the beginning to the end. And folks, I'm just taking questions right now before we actually get spun up for the day. Mirabelle was just asking about subdirectories and how that might play into everything. What other questions do you all have?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Well, maybe one that turns into a broad question. What is the kind of link between prompt engineering as we thought about it
Yeah,
a year, 2 years ago,
yeah,
fit in with this new, with a lot of it
right.
being agent built prompting? Uh,
Yes.
does our kind of core understanding of the techniques of prompt engineering apply here, or is that a little bit secondary?
So it's a great question. And so you might recall at the very beginning of all this, we talked a lot about prompt engineering, and that was because a couple of different reasons. One, you recall that at the very beginning, we had very short context windows, right? We had like maybe 8K, the big ones were like 32K. That's enough for like a couple of pages and then a bunch of back and forth. So it wasn't a whole lot. So we were always trying to get to that knowledge in does anybody remember what that part of the model is called? So you have the attention, and then what's the other part? Anybody remember? This is that 50-cent word. The multi-layer perceptron. That's it, Cheryl. Fantastic. So multi-layer perceptron, that's the storage, that's a fuzzy JPEG of the world. So prompt engineering was about pulling out and sort of reinforcing exactly what we wanted to get out of that multi-layer perceptron. That's all we had. So prompt engineering was really important to say you are a specialist in, or show the steps of your reasoning, or ask me questions before you begin. Because at that point, the models didn't have tools, they couldn't go out for information, so we had to sort of probe and try to do that. Now it's changed quite a bit. First of all, the models are already aligned. We don't say, show me your thinking anymore because the models kick themselves into thinking mode. They're doing that automatically. With much longer context. So it's far more important to curate what you give or make accessible to the model than it is to prompt in a particular way. As a matter of fact, I found that some of my prompting is terrible, terrible. And I co-wrote one of the first papers on prompt engineering, and it's like terrible. I'm like, but it doesn't matter because I have the context in the subdirectory where it knows how to go after, and I know it's going to kick into thinking mode and ask me questions, right, before it does anything. So that's where we are now. When you're creating skills, yes, some aspects of prompt engineering still come in there a little bit, but it's not nearly as critical as it once was. Maxwell, does that answer your question?
It does. It's kind of, to synthesize it, make sure I'm understanding there. Having an
Yeah.
understanding of the underlying precepts of prompt engineering is probably helpful, but we shouldn't
Helpful.
be jumping into it with, multi-thousand
That's going to
word prompts
Yeah,
in order
that's going to
to
get you like this far. Right, exactly. It's far more important to have that curated context and to be working in an agentic way. Hey, if you're doing chat, yes, you're gonna, but the prompt engineering, it's not the magic words anymore. Instead, it's the clear, concise representation of what you need done. Fantastic. All right, folks. It's almost time for us to get started. Let me take any other questions that people have before we get started. Yes, Paul.
as someone who's developing these tools, presumably a lot, is the security ever in question for you? Do you ever have apprehensiveness about the agents you're creating jumping to information on your computer that you don't want them to have? Or is that once you get used to that, is that a pretty clear and settled question?
Now you should never get used to it. Um, but the way that you get comfortable is that you define the scope that the model has access to. So,
Okay.
with sensitive data, that's where I'm most careful if I have student information because we don't have, through Claude Desktop, we don't have level three. We can't put level three in there, data in there. So, at the Vanderbilt University, of course, that is student information. So that means when I'm doing work with student information, I have to be very careful about how I prompt, where I get access to, because I'll do something like, hey, help me write code to de-identify this. And I have to be very careful what it has access to and what I give it access to or not. When it is other things, I still am saying, okay, you have access and you can do these defined things in this subdirectory. At times, I will use computer use, and that means you get to use my entire computer. Here are the things you can't do. And then I make sure I don't have the windows open because I know that it's not going to be able to log into restricted areas because I'm not putting my credentials in, right? So I always make sure that I know what it has access to, what it's doing, and what I give permission for. Um, you can build more robust systems so you can get more comfortable, but you have to have those systems in place to make sure that you're comfortable doing it. The more sensitive the information is, the more vigilant you need to be, the better design that you need to do beforehand. And that's my view. If it's level zero, level one, level two data, I'm a little bit better. Once it's up to level three, boy, that's a different deal. Level four data, it's like so I have to be running a model locally on my computer. I have to make sure everything is locked down. So your vigilance and the care that you take needs to go up with the sensitivity of the data that you're using. Does that answer your question, Paul?
Yes, thanks.
Mhm. All right, then let's go ahead and jump in today. So today we have it's going to be a great session. Two different sessions we're going to have today. First, we are going to be putting hands on, and we're actually going to be creating skills. You're going to be breaking up into groups. You're going to be creating skills. You're going to be doing some hands-on work with authoring skills. Second, we're going to have a discussion and presentation about ethics and AI with Sarah Burriss. Am I right about that, Miranda? In the second hour, we're going to have Sarah.
Yes. Yep.
Fantastic. Sarah actually has taught for ethics courses in the Data Science Institute and and also data science. She's taught in the data science minor as well. So she's done some really interesting deep work in this area. So it's going to be it's a real privilege to have her here and to talk to you all in the second hour. Any other questions since everybody's here? Any other questions before we jump into authoring skills? Then let's get into it. So you might recall that I mentioned last week that there are three different surfaces on which you can design skills. So here we have actually I was just about to do an exec ed session. I'm going to go ahead and create a new task here. We'll take a look at each of these being blank. So here are the three surfaces, right? So here's chat. So chat's great. We're actually using Opus 4.5. You notice that it says type / for skills. So you can actually launch a skill here. When I want to create a skill, I can be very explicit and I can say / skill creator. Now, technically, I don't have to do this. I could have just said, I want to create a skill, and it probably would have pulled up the skill for me. That's what skills do. They look to see when they are needed and then they activate, right? But if you want to be explicit, you can say, hey, I want this skill started. And then I can actually begin. I want to build a skill that dot, dot, dot. And we'll come back and we'll fill this in. So a couple of things here. Skills are best when they reflect your knowledge and your expertise, or the skill and expertise or background of someone else that you're working with. One way to do that is to work with documentation. So if you want to build a skill which does a particular thing, accesses a particular database, for example, you probably want to have all the documentation for that available, right? So you want to have all that. If you are creating the skill here in chat, the only way you're going to be able to do that is to click here and actually add files or photos. Recall that because you're in a chat, that's loading it up into context, right? So in this case, this version of Opus running here is going to have about 200,000 tokens. That might be fine. But remember, anybody remember what we call it when you have so many tokens used up and some of them aren't relevant necessarily? Like if you were to load a PDF that has a bunch of gunk in it, what do we call it when you begin to sort of, some of the important tokens begin to lose some of their value? Anybody remember? Cheryl, if this is you. Oh, Mosin, great. And Cheryl, yes, context rot, exactly. Yes, so it's context rot. So you run the risk here unless you have really good information here that you're going to load up right here. So this is okay. You can build skills right here. Then you have to download them. You're going to have to deal with them, but that is one way to load skills. Second place to load skills. Remember, this is Cowork. Looks just like where we just were, right? Except here's a critical difference. Here, and I'm going to unclick here. Here, what we can do is you can say, I want to work on a project. And I'm not clicking in the plus. I'm clicking down here where it says work in project. And I can choose a subdirectory. Now, Mirabelle, you were asking about subdirectories. This is where they come in. So there are two ways of doing this. One, you can go and you can say, choose a different folder. And if you choose a different folder, then you can go into any subdirectory that you've created. You can also create a new folder. So here you can see all the projects that I have going on. I have a ton of projects going on. I create them all the time. And one of the bigger ones that I just created, USACE Mobile. So this is U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and this is Mobile. This FAR overhaul right here, this is federal regulations on acquisitions. This has in here over 1,000 pages of information that I've pulled out here. It's enormous, but there's no way that's going to fit in context, right? I mean,
I'm
there's
not
no way
sure
that's
we
going
can all see that. I think it's just showing the grayed out Claude.
Thank you so much for, and who was that? Let me know.
Max.
Max, thank you so much, Max, because I do that all the time. It's a terrible habit. Let me go ahead. I'm going to change how I'm sharing. I'm going to share a section of my screen. Portion of screen. Wonderful. All right. I'm going to make it this right size. And now you should be able to see everything. Okay, so here we go. So I clicked on Work on Project. And then I went all the way down here and I said, choose a different folder. Now you can see I have all the projects here, ton of projects. So I'm going to go, so I can create a new folder here. I'm going to go to an existing folder just to show you what this looks like. So this is federal regulations on acquisition. Ton of information in here. So there's like 3,000 pages here in the subdirectory. So now if I choose this, and if I go ahead and I choose USACE, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Mobile, I'm going to choose that. Now, when I create a skill here, a couple of things happen. One, I can create intermediate files here, or the agent can, because this is not chat, this is an agent. This is a full-on agent. It can create files, it can read files, it can do grep, which is like search within the files. It can read all the documents that I've already created. So I have a full manifest of these files already. It's ready to go. So if I were to create an agent here, it has all of that at its disposal, right? Um, I have a whole conversation that I had with the commander down there about the problems that they're experiencing and the things that they have. All of that is right there. So when I say, hey, I want to create a skill which assesses, assesses plans for acquisition to see if it's, fits within our federal regulations. If it doesn't, exactly how it doesn't. Now, the agent can go through, look through the conversation, get more of the specifics. It can look through and see how it can access the information. And now the skill, if the skill is going to be running within this environment, it doesn't have to try to recreate everything, right? It can reference the things that are there. Or if I mean for it to be transportable, I can say that it's like, hey, you won't have access to all this stuff, but make me a good, complete skill that does the following. That skill is going to be so much better than if I try to create that just within chat. Because in chat, I have to hand it everything and it has to fit within context. If I create it here in Cowork, it can access anything it needs. It's an agent. So what questions do you have so far about the difference between creating on chat and creating in Cowork, which is an agent? And let's see, let me pull up. Let me deal with the funkiness here. If we have folders on OneDrive, yes, you can put folders on OneDrive. You give it access to just the folder, and it only has access to that folder, so you're good.
And that's automatic, right, Jesse? It's not like I have to specify that that's the only folder you can access, but it automatically gets access to that one folder.
Because I've named it here, yeah. So when I name it here, then that is where it is running, and it doesn't go outside of that unless you explicitly say. Kayla, you have a question as well, and then maybe I'll get back to you.
So the average user, I think, just uses chat. The Cowork is really the best for creating skills, as you said.
Although let me redirect just a bit though.
Okay.
Currently, people use chat because that's all that they know. They really
Okay.
ought to be using Cowork because with
Okay.
Cowork, it can do so much more. It can do parallel searches. If you say, I want to, so I was just preparing a presentation for 12 different people, right? So I gave it the list of people. With chat, you could give it that list and it will do a serial search on those things, right? It might be able to do a little better, but then it's going to show you. But if I do that in Cowork, it can spin up as many different agents as it needs to do that. It can prepare a document for me. It can prepare a Word document, PDF, Markdown. It can create multiple things and put it into a subdirectory. So it's much better to work with Cowork in almost all instances, unless it's like a quick one-off. But I agree with you. Most people are using chat, but that's not because they should. It's because that's what they know.
That was pretty much my question, was what the advantage of using chat would be over using Cowork, or what Cowork is best to do, or what things Cowork is better to use for.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you can imagine, especially if you're doing work which is repeatable, in Cowork, you can, more easily create skills, absolutely. But then you can also make those repeatable, right? So you can kick those off like, hey, I want to run what we just did every Thursday at noon. And it's really tough to do that in chat. Great. Let's see. Now, there was a question. Okay, so good. That was already answered. If we put folders on OneDrive, okay.
I had a question about context length with working with agents here.
Yes.
Is Claude as in the agent mode kind of dynamically purging context from its window, so we're not going to get to some kind of a insecure or a dangerous point?
Great point. So yes, a good agent, and this is the role of the agent harness, right? The agent harness will keep track of how much context has been used and do either do what's called a compaction. So we'll actually take the most important things, compact down that, and so you can continue. But it also has external memory. So it has external memory that it can use. It has an external task list, which it can use. So it has a lot more that can offload. So it's not all just sitting in context. In chat, you get what you get. And when you run out of context, you're done. Um, there are more capabilities that are appearing in chat, but generally once you're at that limit, you're at the limit. In an agent like Cowork or Code, you can continue that work. Jesse mentions that he barely uses chat anymore. Chat is best for one-off questions. I absolutely agree. There was a question whether if we have Cowork or if we have Claude Desktop as a tool within Vanderbilt University. No, but a really interesting thing happened earlier this week, which was that Anthropic announced Claude Platform on AWS. This would be a way for us to perhaps access this in a more secure way. I've asked for a review of this to see whether this might be eligible for level 3 data. But one of the nice things is that the regular AWS handles all the billing, all the authentication to tools and to things like that. So that's within the AWS system. But it looks like this. They still send things off to Anthropic. They're not inferencing locally there in AWS. So we're gonna have a conversation about this. At the CCC, we have adopted Claude as a very broad tool that we're using. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Mohsen, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi Jesse. Thanks for this. I wanted to just redirect. I think you were starting with this just so I can keep my head uncluttered. You started by talking about the 1,000-page document and the point of you were building a skill that was the point of the skill to like sort of chop it up and organize it.
I did that work early, and I did that, and I'll show you where I did that too, because I did that in code. So I prepared, and that's actually exactly what I'm talking about next. I prepared that data, and so I could use it later. But then I can use Cowork to create the skills. But first, I needed to do some heavy lifting with code, and I'll show you exactly what I did.
Okay. So it's all the hot rage right now is like this, both two things, and maybe they're related. I don't know if I see the direct connection, is the memory management.
Yep.
And then you just mentioned harnessing. So with respect to Cowork, which I'm the least, I'm very comfortable with code and with chat. With Cowork, is there an easy way for one to learn the harnessing part? Is there a harnessing component, human harnessing, or are we just relying on Anthropic's harnessing built into Cowork?
Oh yeah, we're just depending on the harness, which is built in. So this is what we got. Yeah, right. So it looks like this. And the cool thing is we don't need to concern ourselves with it, right?
Okay.
So here's the LLM. This is all that you have if you have chat. If you're using an agent, and this could be Cowork, or this can be Claude Code, you have all these different things. You have access to the file system. You have access to skills everywhere. But you also, in an agent, you have memory, you have a task list, you might have graph data. It has many more mechanisms to keep track over the long run of what it and its subagents are doing. So that's what I mean by harness. I mean exactly this thing right here. It turns out that in terms of capabilities, it is no longer, there are two ways to get work done and to get vast improvements in the quality of work that you can get done. One is skills. If you have a good skill, you have a small model, then you can have a skill that will equal much larger models. So a locally running model, Qwen 3.6 with skills, will absolutely equal, for the specific task that the skill is addressing, will equal Opus 4.7 without skills. It will absolutely match it. So that's a way to deal with a much smaller model. You put a skill in there and it works much, much better. The second way is a great harness. The vast differences between models right now are often in their harnesses. So those are two things to keep in mind. All right.
Okay, so I'm sorry, just to clean that up. So
Sure.
Cowork, you would only mess with the harness if you really need you would do that through code, most likely.
Yeah, and that's going to be you can, but you'd have to really think about what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but let's say if something really specialized, you could.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I just want to
But
clear it up that Mohsen, you're not messing with the harness on Claude Code. You are messing with the harness by like from scratch coding your own thing.
Customizing a code.
customizing,
But you're not
Customizing a harness. Yes.
yeah, which is a
right,
whole
but
different
that
thing.
would be like by yourself in Python, not in the software called Claude Code. I just want to make sure we're separating like the software code
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
like actually coding it yourself.
I guess I'm saying if I have a pipeline where I think I need to build my own custom harness, I can't do that in Cowork. I would have to start using
Yes.
Claude Code,
No,
i.e.,
that's a
to
No,
just
that's
design.
what
well,
no, so
well,
you would have to like program that
well,
yourself is what I'm saying.
although
Oh.
Miranda, you could program that in Claude
Right,
Code.
you could use Claude Code to help you program it, but you
Yeah.
won't be
Yeah.
changing Claude Code. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
there's too many codes being thrown around.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah. Thank you.
But
That's right.
whenever you need to do hardcore programming, but yeah, so let's do a couple of things. One, try skills first. Definitely try skills first. If
Yeah.
it's something where you really, really need it, then maybe you can do harness, but skills are so much faster. You may only be able to get 80% there, but you get to that 80%, within an hour
Mm-hmm.
versus days of work, to actually modify the harness. And keep in mind, once you create your own harness, then you don't benefit from the advances in harnesses. You have to update your stuff as people come up with oh, I have a new graph representation that all harnesses are using now because it's amazing. You're like, great. Now I have to add it to my harness. So it's always a
Okay.
trade-off.
Thank
All
you.
right. So now this is chat. This is Cowork. What about code? Well, you use code. You can always use code to create skills. I even used, and I'll show you what this looked like here. So this is the hardcore Claude Code, and I went all the way up to the top here. I use Claude Code CLI. So and this sometimes gets confusing. Here's Claude. Whoops, not that one. Where'd it go? Oh, okay, I moved the wrong one out of the way. Here we go. Okay, so here is chat, Cowork, and code. This is what Claude Code looks like in the desktop version. You can absolutely use it here. Keep in mind, when you're running the desktop version, it's running in sort of a sandbox. So that's one of the more secure ways. But you can also run what's called Claude Code CLI. And that's what this is. This is running on my computer. This is running in the mobile, USACE mobile subdirectory. So this is how I scope what it has access to. And this is where I said, hey, go and get all these files. Get these dozens of files with thousands of pages. Go and find them. It did it. So it did all the work. And then I started a really intensive amount of work to like translate these. I did this in code because I knew that there was going to be a lot of back and forth, and it was going to have to write code to do things. So if you think that it's going to write a lot of code that you want to be able to reproduce and to reuse later, use Claude Code. You don't have to be a programmer to use it necessarily. You want to use Claude Code. The difference is that when you're using Cowork, it's going to write code, but it's not going to be code that you get to reuse. It's writing it for itself. It's writing code for itself. It might be able to share some with you, but by and large, this code that Claude Cowork is writing is a one-off. Claude Code makes reproducible code. Okay. Questions about where you can create skills and why you might choose one surface over another? Okay. Shall we make a skill together? Okay. This is going to be I can create a skill based on Army Corps of Engineers unless somebody else has a skill to suggest to create.
Could you create a skill that indexes the internet and pulls the most up-to-date versions and features for Claude and turn it into like a
Sure.
newsletter?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to uncheck. Uh, there's a little bit of a bug in the programming there, which is hilarious. So I'm going to go here. Actually, I might go and, no, I already have something called AI News, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose a different folder. I'm going to say new folder. I'm going to call it uh, Claude News. Okay. Now, keep in mind, once I've created this subdirectory, I can put other things in it, right? As a matter of fact, this is going to be one of those cases where maybe I could have made this in chat, but you might put a description here of the things that you're interested in, or you might have it keep the old versions of the newsletters in here so it doesn't repeat, right? So you might run it again and say, show me what's new. Well, what's new is what has not been in a newsletter before. So maybe we'll think of it that way. Uh, allow Claude, see, here we go. Allow Claude to change files in Claude News. All files and subfolders will be able to read, edit, and permanent delete, and make sure file contacts with third-party tools it connects to. I love this. I'm going to always allow. Okay, so I want to create a skill. And remember, I can sort of assume that the skill creator is going to fire, or I can do this. That will look at the most recent Claude developments. It will check for previous news in previous updates and won't repeat. Okay, but so Danny, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you most interested in? I am most interested in.
How Claude has been improving maybe month over month, whether or not the new models perform better than previous models.
Okay.
I would say I wouldn't want it necessarily not to repeat, but maybe learn from the previous news. Like if it says Opus, I don't
Okay.
know, 4.1 is terrible, and then these fixes were released, and now it's better, stuff
Okay,
like
and when you
that.
say better, according to whom?
According to what's out there in
To
the
what
internet.
people are saying?
Yeah,
You can say,
because everybody has, how do you test if these are models
yeah,
are better or worse?
right. Keep in mind, I'm going to say track improvements, you know, from the model, from the models. Remember, we have harness, right? Models harness, skills, uh, and okay. Anything else that's important for us to put in here? Anybody else
Probably,
want to add something here? And Danny, go ahead first.
yeah. The last thing I would say is like security risks. Any like new security risks that have come out and if they've been addressed or not.
I would maybe add memory management or context management, maybe, which I'm not sure I know the difference, but
Uh, yeah, context management being more like a compaction, as a whole. Memory management is picking out specific details and storing those. Context management. Okay. Okay, great. All right, so now we'll see if I'm going to say an agent skill. Let's see if it picks up skill creator. If it doesn't, we're going to stop it. We're going to say, hey, use skill creator. Not terrifically happy because it's not pulling up skill creator skill. I'm going to let it ask its questions. I'm going to stop it and say, hey, um, where should the skill store previous? I'm going to say workspace folder. Uh, I'm going to say all. I'm going to say, do you want it scheduled or do you want it on demand, scheduled weekly? See, now the models have the ability to run on a regular basis.
I think weekly would make the most amount of sense where it's not overwhelming.
Okay. How do you want it? Markdown is nice and light, but you just have to format it. All right, how about Markdown and live HTML artifact? That's
Yeah,
cool.
because if it's going to be a newsletter, you'd
Mhm.
want to capture the reader's attention, right?
I'm going to ask, are you using the skill creator? Oh, whoops. See, let me invoke the skill creator to build this properly. There we go. And then it's going to say, yeah, I just said, yes, I invoked skill creator before this turn. Okay. So now so here it's able to find, it's finding the files, it's reading the skill, it's going to be able to land documents. So this is why Claude Cowork is a great place to create skills. And see, here's the task create. Remember, chat doesn't have task create. It's not going to have so it created that separate task list of drafting the skill, adding reference files, packaging the skill, verifying the skills. These are the four things it has on its list of things to do. In chat, it has to sort of keep track of that in context. It's much harder. Letting me peek at a couple of existing skills to match conventions. Okay, now I'm gonna pop over. I'm gonna see if I can. Let me get all this out of the way. Oh heavens. I'm just gonna and we created this under something called, what do we call it? We call it Claude News, I think. No, Claude Hack.
I think it was
What did we call
it
this?
was Claude News.
Where did
You
we?
might have saved it in the like your personal in the home
It might be
folder.
on desktop.
Oh heavens. Okay, whoopsie. Yeah. So I should have been more careful about where I put this. I'll be able to find it in a minute. But yeah, so it's Claude News, go to folder. Here we go. So you can always click over here to go to folder. So it's under, it's a terrible place. So it hasn't created anything new in there yet. All right, now it's writing the skill.md.
Jesse, would you mind sharing the prompt in the text box here?
Sure.
Thank you.
Now keep in mind that this is even better if you've curated context, right? So if you said, and by the way, I love this newsletter that's actually about knitting, right? But I love this knitting newsletter, but I want a newsletter that looks just like that, but for Claude development news, right? Like the font, like everything, so make it the same. Or you can say, here's my resume. So figure out what I would be interested in based on my resume and make me a Claude News update for things that are relevant to me, right? That curated context makes these skills better. This is not bad. This will be useful. All right. So now it's actually testing itself too. So when it creates a skill, it will test itself by creating 3 test cases, and then it will run those 3 test cases 2 times each. One in an agent that does not have access to the skill, and another time in an agent that does have access to the skill. Why do this? Well, it could be that the skill you came up with has no value. It could be that the model itself could have done perfectly fine without the skill, which means you're just burning tokens for no reason. You could have just given that prompt and said, instead of make me a skill, give me a newsletter. And in the case you want to know that, and you want to have an idea of how good the skill is working and whether it fails at anything which is important. Because remember, the skill, once it's done, is going to be editable. You'll be able to change it and to edit. All right. While this is writing, because sometimes this takes a little while to do, I would like for you to start thinking about what skill you would like to write to propose. We're going to put you into groups. Miranda, are we kind of ready to put people into study groups in a moment?
Yes, I'm going to make the about 5 people per breakout room because I know
Okay.
people wanted kind of larger ones. Is that what we're aiming for?
I think so. Five. How many people? What do you all think? Do you want to have five or you want to have six? How many people like the idea of five? Give me a green check if you like five. Remember, you get to green check by doing under whatever it is. So green check.
It's under React.
React. Thank you. Great. Yeah, and give me a red if you'd rather do six.
I mean, it's going to kind of be split anyway because it's not exact. It's not exact science creating these breakout rooms. So
Okay, great. It looks like more people are going for five. That's fantastic. So let's do that. And then, but if anybody is in a small group, let me know. All right.
all right, they are open now.
Okay. All right. So it looks like it's, oh, good. Okay. You ready? Here we go. What's inside? View the skill file. Let's go and take a look at the skill file. Okay. So the description is research recent Claude developments and produce a dated upward plus a live HTML artifact trigger whenever, let's see if I can, so here's the skill, and I might actually, so skill.md, let's see if I can, I'm going to go to the Claude News. Here it is. Here's the tracker skill. This is what it looks like. So this is what it wrote on your behalf. Oh, I love that it's putting in version now. It was not doing that before. That's fantastic. Jesse wants a recurring read on where Claude is going. So you can edit this. If you don't like any of that, then you can edit. Working philosophy: build on the prior reports, don't restart, synthesize, don't dump, take community sentiment seriously but skeptically, flag security, don't fearmonger, cite everything that matters, workflow, orient against the existing archive, determine the coverage window, sweep the sources, use web search, cluster findings into 6 themes. Oh, so I picked up on this: models, harness, skills, memory management, context management. If this is not really what you meant, you can edit it here, right? Score each finding for inclusion, write the markdown report, lead with the verdict, build fresh live HTML artifact, offer to schedule a weekly run, handoff, and here's what the output should look like. So not bad. Not bad. So this is a skill which we could then add. So we can actually, where'd you go? So you can actually say save skill, and that will save it locally and make it available. Well, we'll save it and make it available whenever you are running Claude, either in Claude Desktop or you're running Claude in Claude Web. So questions about how we go about creating a skill.
Jesse, I had put this question in the chat.
Okay.
If you repeat this process, does it do the same thing? If I take the same prompt that you just did and put it on my computer, or run the same prompt twice to create the same skill, how replicable is this?
So let's do one place versus another. It'll be different because remember, we do add the noise when you're doing the auto regression, right? So it's always a little bit different, but it's going to be kind of close, right? Change the wording and all, it may look very different. If you rerun skill creator on an existing skill, it will take you into an editing version of it. How would you want to modify? What's working? What's not working? So that skill creator is meant to create and to modify and to update. All right. Andrea, when you want to edit a skill, do you prefer to modify the MD file or tell the natural language to let Claude modify the MD? Depends on how broad it is, right? If I'm like, that is not what I meant at all. I don't want the harness as a separate thing. I don't want those separate categories. I want you to just keep those in mind as you're reporting out what's important. that it is probably something that I would say to this, and I might just let Claude do that editing, but stuff like, sometimes I will go in directly and edit if I want things exactly right, like formatting, right? I might go in and edit that directly, but otherwise, Claude's pretty good about going in and editing. It's a markdown, so it doesn't have to do the whole thing of like, oh, now I'm, looking in the Word file. That takes forever. Markdown is really fast for Claude to edit. All right. Are we ready to go into breakouts? Let me remind you. I'm going to suggest you start out in Cowork. Try that. You're going to get right here. You might create a subdirectory to work in. Talk amongst yourselves. Choose what you want to build. And let's go and make a decently long breakout room. Let's do 15 minutes. Does that sound all right to you, Miranda?
Yeah, I think that'll be perfect.
Okay, great. We're going to do 15 minutes. So decide whose skill you want to build first. I ask you to do the following. Please turn on your screen if you can, your camera while you're in the breakout room. Choose someone to share their screen, and then build a skill together. Remember, it can take a little to build, right? Because it's going to be coming up with those test cases, which take a while. So decide early. You can even have multiple people building at the same time. Questions before we go to the breakout rooms?
So Jesse, I have a question. So once you've got a skill, how do you actually test it?
Yeah. So in this case, I think it was it actually will it will often run the test for you automatically and say evaluate now. The skill creator will tend to do that. Here it didn't exactly do that. It said optional accents, produce an inaugural report and check to see whether it's any good. The more that you have defined output, and especially if you mention a metric or a test, how do I know if you're working? When I give you this, you'll produce this. Then it will absolutely produce a test run and will ask you to do an evaluation and an assessment. Yeah. All right. Other questions? And you see this, number 2 is run the formal eval loop. And it even mentions it's slower, but it's more rigorous. All right. I think we're ready to go into breakout rooms then. Excellent. Let's go and open those up. And looking forward to hearing what you all do when you all come back.
Yep, those rooms are open. You should be able to move yourselves around. So if you have issues, hopefully you can resolve them, but if not, feel free to let me know if you have issues getting into anything. I have also been told that if you can't see breakout rooms or if you are getting kicked from breakout rooms, that it might have something to do with your Zoom version. So you may have to
Log
leave
out,
and then
update,
update it and
again.
then come back.
Does anybody need assistance here? Oh, we're good. Everyone's figured it out. Can I just say that I love my skill creator, my lecture to lecture notes.
I think
And
a lot of people love
I have
it.
I created a second skill which automatically updates the repo. Just puts it up there. And anybody who's still here, if you have trouble, you can unmute and let us know that you're having trouble, and we'll see if we can help you out. There was interest in Claude Code. I'm thinking maybe we do that next week, like on Tuesday, maybe do a session on Claude Code.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Mhm. Would you want to? So I can do that because I know that you like to work in Cursor and Claude Code. Yeah.
I did the Visual Studio extension, but
Okay.
I did for AI Summer, I did get the desktop app and start using it so that I was able to like coherently talk about it. So
Yes.
all right, I'm gonna get a snack real quick, but I still have my headphones on so I can hear if we need any.
Okay, good. All right. Hey there, Gretchen. We are in breakout rooms, and I can drop you into one if you don't mind, if you'd like.
That would be great. I am getting ready to walk to my car. I'll be able to participate in probably about 3 to 4 minutes.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Were you already in a breakout room previously?
I was not. I just was working, and so I'm just now getting to my lunch.
Of course, of course.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm glad the class is still going on. Okay.
Oh, definitely.
I'm going to hang on here, but I'm going to mute and I'll
Okay.
pick it up in a few minutes.
All right. I'll drop you into room 3. That looks active.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Hello, Sarah. We are in breakout rooms right now. People are building building skills.
Hey, perfect. Sorry to miss the earlier piece. I have still a flat tire.
No, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's really sad. But what can you do?
That's yeah, I'm so well. I hope you have somebody on the way to.
Yeah, I have one of those like air pumps that I can
Yep.
just plug into my car.
Yep.
And the tires have to be, they're not arriving until this afternoon. So I pumped it up, drove here. Um,
Yep.
and I'll pump it back up and drive back to the tire
Yep.
place. But it's like,
That sounds like a plan.
yeah, yeah, never a dull moment.
I had a flat on my one wheel
Oh no.
earlier this year. It was the saddest thing because I had to send it off because it's a whole thing to replace it.
Oh no. Oh no. Um, let me
That's
see here.
gorgeous. I can see it.
You can see the whiteboard.
Yeah.
Great. All right, I need to do something here. I'm gonna do.
And if it's all right, when folks come back in, I'll ask for a few folks just to who are willing to report out just a little bit on what they created.
That sounds great. I just external
Hey
payment
there,
cannot
Shay.
access the whiteboard. Okay. Um,
Everyone's
yeah.
staying.
Let me see here. I just want to. Hmm.
And Ashan, hello. We're in breakout rooms. We're just getting close to finishing up with the breakout rooms, and folks will be coming back. Would you like to be put into a room, or are you happy to hang out here with us? Okay, that sounds great.
Mhm.
Okay, so I can do a minute warning for everyone before the rooms will close. You want me to go ahead and start that?
I think so, yeah.
All right. Yep, okay, and those should close in a minute.
Hello, Dr. Burriss.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to see you.
Great to see you again. I was there, Sumner County Schools.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm currently working on my AI GP
Oh,
accreditation.
nice.
So yeah, I can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Amazing. Amazing. I actually am also studying for that too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
It's a hefty test.
yeah, it is. I'm planning to take it at some point over the summer. I haven't picked a date yet, though.
Welcome back, everybody. All right, so I'm very interested in hearing who would be willing to share the work of their group.
Josie, I'm happy to share what we started.
Great.
I will preempt though and say that I installed Zoom directly before joining today on a new machine. And the only way it lets me share my screen is to restart Zoom. So I didn't want to do that. I was verbally talking over the outputs to things with our team. So I'm going to have to unfortunately do the same for you.
That's just it.
But we sort of started the conversation and trying to think through the types of recurring tasks that anybody might be facing where a skill could sort of help us save time in an automated manner. We didn't necessarily have any pinpoint cases, and so we sort of went to a more generic sense and looking at like a transcripted task extractor. I think very similar to what maybe you're already utilizing. And the prompt that we gave it was create a skill that takes transcripts from unstructured meeting recordings in various text formats, parses out actionable items and responsibilities, produces JSON files for importing them into task management tools, and then creates an email file that the meeting author can use to send commitments or action items to meeting attendees automatically.
Nice.
And that skill is still running. The interesting thing is, I think it put together a fairly good plan. In addition to sort of writing the skill and the Python parsing script, it looks like it was creating some sample transcripts and evaluating them for testing, and that those initial tests were executed successfully. Now it is running, continuing to run some expanded test cases and generating a viewer for me. And then by the end, it will grade results and then package up that final skill. So still running, not completed, but this is the idea that we ran with.
That's fantastic. That's a really powerful one. Now, the cool thing about that is, because keep in mind, think of all the software that we license and we buy right now to do stuff like that, right? But you can do much better than that because you can say, here's my organization, right? So here's everybody's email, here's what they do, here's their background. Here, go and find the agenda. The agenda will always be on Monday, or the agenda will be here. So be sure that, this is the background information for it. So you can make really the more context, not just for the skill that you can provide as you're building the skill, but that the skill has access to the better job it'll be able to do. I love that one. Anybody else have something to share in brief about what your team decided to come up with?
Hey, Jesse, I just copy and
Yes.
pasted the skill prompt right here. So we wanted to make a tutor for our kids. For example, one of our members, she wanted to make it for her high school grader, schooler, and I have one middle schooler. So we write this text like, I want to create an experienced PhD level math tutor for middle school. And the tutor should be interactive, explain the problem before giving the answers, double check the answers to make sure it is corrected, and be creative. We gave some information like the agent should show some multiple methods, make it fun, and build their confidence and curiosity, make it adaptive, lowest level cognitive learning to higher level cognitive level. So those kind of things. So it's still I'm running.
Yes.
Let's see what comes up.
I love that. That's fantastic. That's great. And
Yeah.
again, you could make a highly personalized skill for, your particular, student. By the way, here are the current interests, of my child, right? That's fantastic. Well, great.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share what you all created?
I can share the start of what we created
Yes.
in the breakout room. So for a course I'll be teaching next semester, we need up-to-date data sets. And I want to be able to explore a bunch of publicly available data sets. So we asked Claude Cowork to create a skill for going to FRED, the Federal Reserve uh, database, and downloading data using my API key. And it was very loosely specified. I basically said I want data and I want some documentation about that data, about where it comes from and what the variables mean, etc. And Claude asked some follow-up questions. I didn't have an API key initially. It has instructed me how to get one, which was very straightforward. It created a template for the documentation for the data set, so they'll all be in the same format. And it also created a Python script which will go hit the FRED API and download the data into kind of a normalized format.
Nice. So it did write. So Claude Cowork was able to write you Python script, which will be within the within the skill subdirectory. That's great.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. And so it's not that it can't do it, but it's going to be very sort of purpose built. When I created my lecture to lecture notes skill that you all benefit from now because it creates the lecture notes that you all see of the recordings, I did that in Claude Code because I knew that I was going to have to create some heavy duty code to make sure that the skill would work across platforms, not just in Mac, but also in Windows. So, but that's why I did it there. But I might have been able to do it if it was just specific for my machine. Might have been able to do that within Claude Cowork. Well, this is fantastic, folks. This is great. These are some great applications.
Just a quick request. Could you please share a couple of maybe one or two skills that you have created for this course?
Yes, absolutely. Be very happy to share. I'll put those up on the repository.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
And one final thing that I'll mention, just because these are really important to take a look at, remember that that you have here. Oh, come on now. Remember that in Claude, so you can always go to customize, and you can say create new skills, and you can look and see what things already what skills you already have. Also, if you click on add plugin, this is really critical. You click on add plugin, browse plugin, looky here. These are called plugins. These are collections of connectors and skills which do amazing things. And in just this week, as a matter of fact, they released the legal plugin. Now, you might recall earlier in the year, $283 billion of market capitalization was knocked off of software companies, software as a service companies that did legal work. Well, now they've released something which is even bigger. So legal now is actually for specific types of law. So this is, now they work actually with a number of different, through Model Context Protocol, a number of different providers. So now within Claude, this is going to make a huge difference to legal practices. Also, they released one for small business as well. So now you have a small business plugin as well. So do take a look at these when you're doing things. Sometimes you don't have to create stuff from scratch. You're doing bio research. Definitely check out the bio research plugin. So there are dozens of plugins here that do very specific types of things. So just keep this in mind. Uh, Really powerful way of doing things. All right. Well, I'm going to stop here. Final questions before we hand this over to Sarah. All right. Thank you all very much for your work in your breakout rooms and for sharing. Sarah, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to see everybody, even if you're tiny in Zoom boxes. So my name is Sarah Burriss, and I am a new assistant professor of the practice here at the College of Connected Computing. And I eat, sleep, and breathe AI ethics. I love to talk about this subject. I love to teach about it, to think with other people about it. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to chat with you all today about how we might build the skills and tools and apply them in ways that are hopefully oriented towards greater human flourishing, thinking about the questions we might have about, what it means to release a certain, technology into the world, what kind of guidelines we want to build around it, how we should shape the tools that we're using, what kind of ethical considerations we might want to think about when we are developing and applying and monitoring, evaluating the use of the things that we build and how we are using them ourselves. So the way that I'm gonna do the next little bit of time is first I'm gonna do a brief interactive whiteboard activity just to get all of our juices flowing, get some ideas out there, get us into the right headspace to think about AI ethics. And this is an activity that I've done with a whole range of different kinds of people, from middle schoolers to graduate students to professionals like you all, with very different results. So it's always an interesting thing to do. So we're going to do a collaborative whiteboard activity. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about, I'm going to talk for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, tell you a little bit about my background and some basics of AI ethics that I want you to know as you are thinking about how you're going to, continue your AI practice, both this summer and more broadly out in the world. And then we'll have some time for conversation and questions, but also feel free to interrupt at any point. Although I have to say, I'm really bad about monitoring the chat. So just unmute yourself and ask a question if you have it, because I might not see it. Okay, so without further ado, what we are going to do is I am going to have you join this whiteboard. All right. Now, can people see the whiteboard? Now,
I
the
see
next
it.
question. Excellent. The next question is, can people add things to the whiteboard?
Oh, there we go. All right, y'all, keep in mind
Excellent.
this is recorded.
I don't know how to add things to the whiteboard, but I can see the whiteboard.
So you should have a set of tools on the right side. Sorry, left side.
Oh, I'm on my phone, so maybe I don't have the
Oh yeah, phones, this will not work well. But
awesome.
Sorry. Well, you can participate out loud if you would like. But what
Okay.
we are okay, so what we are doing on this whiteboard is if you zoom out so you can see the whole thing, I've got a line on here that says agree and disagree. Agree is on the left-hand side and disagree is on the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say aloud a statement. And I want you to locate yourself with whatever you want. You can put your name on a little sticky, or you can draw an X, however you want to locate yourself along this spectrum of like really strongly agree to really strongly agree. Do that after I tell you what your first statement is. Okay, so the first one that I want you to agree or disagree with, and just to note that these are infuriatingly vague, and that's intentional. So there will be different interpretations of this, and there is no right or wrong answer here. There's only a right or wrong answer for you for right now. You're not married to the place where you put yourself. And in fact, I hope that you think about, where you fit, and changing it throughout the course of your life and even today. Okay, so without further ado, your first statement is AI is good for humanity. And I'll type it here too. So agree or disagree? AI is good for humanity, and anything in between. Agree and disagree. We got a big question mark. All right, as people are figuring out where they want to be, who wants to volunteer to tell me a little bit about where you have put yourself and why?
I'm somewhere in the middle, because I see all of the good that it can do. But I also see how it is changing society, especially entry-level positions. And I don't know that as a society we're ready for that or are handling it maybe in the best way.
Thank you, Kayla. All right, who else wants to share where you've located yourself and why?
I'm similar to where Kayla is, but for me, it's more of like how the AI is used. Yes, there's definitely good, but like sometimes bad actors can use AI for malicious things, and that's where it ends up being bad.
Thank you. Thank you, Ida. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. You can either erase your previous one or you can move it to wherever you want to go. And it's cool when you do this in person, you can actually see people like moving their bodies. But we'll see it here. Okay, so agree will be on the left and on the right will be disagree. Your next statement is, and this actually is a good link to what Kayla was saying too, and you, Ida, AI is good for work.
Are we still able to see the agree and disagree bar? Because it's disappeared from my screen.
No, I think it disappeared. I think we cleared it all. But just put yourself on the left side if you agree, and more towards the right side if you disagree. And I can also put it into here. You can even, I think I can see everybody's cursors. You can even hover your cursor too if you wanted to. Okay, and as people are settling into where they want to be, how about somebody who very strongly agrees that AI is good for work? Does anybody who's very strong agree want to share?
I will share. I think there's a lot of conversations about entry-level positions. I think we will recalibrate what entry-level positions, what that means, what those are. I think a consequence could be we're challenging our value system, and that we'll also have to recalibrate. But it also, I think, will allow opportunities for being unplugged if you choose to, and more creativity.
Thank you. Thank you, Kara. Does anybody want to share a disagree?
Yeah, this is going to be ironic because I'm the world's biggest fan. So a little bit here, but I believe work has dignity, and dignity needs to be done by created and cultivated by humans. So I'm a little bit concerned about the dignity of work being trapped just to efficiency and output, and not the human who does it themselves.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing these different perspectives here. Our final statement is a little bit different. AI can create art. On this one, it looks like we have more of a bifurcated distribution here. We have a split with some people right in the middle too. Oh, a sad dog. All right. Who wants to share? I'll take two more perspectives here. Who wants to share? Who has a strong view of whether AI can create art?
AI is oversimplified, or the term. So it depends if you mean AGI, which hasn't really happened yet, or just all these machine learning tools. Can they reproduce art? And they can, especially based on inputs coming up with wild and crazy combinations and iterations based on brief descriptions of what the user inputs for the machine learning to summarize and then blend and come up with a completely new image that has never been seen before. And it can still be thought-provoking or just as mundane as any other piece of artwork that you can find in a hotel room or a gallery.
Thank you. And how do you say your name? Mamie? Is that right?
Yes, Mamie.
Mamie, nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing. Miranda, I want to hear from you if you're willing.
Oh, of course I'm willing. So for anyone that doesn't know, I am a professional musician when I'm not doing this. So I'm a hugely invested, I have a double life essentially. But I believe that art is human, and I don't want to observe a piece of art that's not, like, I'm not about to listen to a piece of music that a human has not created and that has benefited from honestly stealing from artists. Like Anthropic, for instance, pirated hundreds of thousands of books to create what they have now. And I think that the reason we have art is to communicate as humans, and I'm never going to look at something that AI has created, which I generally think that the AI stuff coming out looks bad anyway. You can usually tell. But yeah, no, I just have a lot. This one strikes a chord for me. Not to make a pun, but
Please always make the pun. Thank you, Miranda, for sharing. And I want to point out, let's take a look at the whiteboard here. Look at that distribution of ideas about whether AI can make art. This is just one of any infinite number of questions related to ethics we can ask about AI. And people will have very strong opinions about the way that it can or should be used. And these are often it's hard to have conversations about what appropriate use is when we have such differing opinions. And part of what I aim to do here today and in my broader work is have some of those discussions so we can figure out a way of reasoning through these ideas so that we can make sure the things that we're building and using, we're using in a way that, honors our commitments and our ethical beliefs. But it's tough when you have such a wide range of ideas about what can and cannot or should not be done with AI. So thank you for playing along there. Now I'm going to move into sharing my slides. Let me bring those up. And I will talk about a little bit more about some ideas in AI ethics and why it's important for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I will ask folks for questions and conversation at the end. Here we go. Okay, advanced. Getting my portion of the screen showing. All right. Can folks see my screen? My slide, AI can make art? Yes. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so again, I am Sarah Burriss. I work here at the College of Connected Computing, and I teach various courses here, but some of my favorites are about AI ethics. And my research has also been in AI ethics, particularly AI ethics in education, what it means to use AI ethically in education, and also how we can teach and learn about AI ethics with students of a wide variety of ages, from middle school to doctoral students and professional learners. Why do I do this work? How have I gotten here? I want to give you one answer. It's a personal answer. It's motivated my career to get here. It's also a really sad story. So just bear with me. I promise you we're going to get out onto the other end into a more hopeful conversation. But I think it's a really important thing to talk about because it showed for me what the stakes are related to these kinds of topics. So I'm going to give you one answer from my perspective. So before moving here to Nashville and getting my PhD, I was a librarian, and I worked a block away from the Charleston Emmanuel AME Church called Mother Emanuel. And this church was really famous in our community and beyond for being a historically important congregation. It's one of the oldest AME or African Methodist Episcopalian congregations in the US, founded in 1817. Unfortunately, it is now famous for another reason as well. It was the site of a mass shooting in June of 2015. And one of my colleagues, librarian Cynthia Hurd, who's the third from the left there, was among those people murdered in the massacre. So Cynthia and 8 of her fellow worshipers were killed by Dylan Roof, a self-avowed white supremacist, during a Bible study session at the AME church. And Cynthia and I, we hadn't been super close, even though she had been at the library for decades. She and I were at different branches, but I deeply admired her. Throughout my time at the library, but hadn't had a chance to work with her very closely yet. Although I had started attending more meetings that were with people at different branches, and was looking forward to getting to know her. And knew her as a very funny and kind and a really devoted and loving librarian for her community at her branch of the library just down the road from the one where I worked. And I had actually been in a meeting with her. I was filling in for my supervisor the morning of the day she was killed. And I have like a memory burned into my brain of her sitting across from me in the conference room, chatting with her friends, laughing with those people that she'd worked with over decades in her career at the library. And at the time, I knew, of course, that this was a terrible human tragedy, terrible tragedy for our community, but I didn't at that time see the connections to the design of algorithms and the architecture of our online information systems. And I didn't realize that until I came to do my studies here at Vanderbilt. So it wasn't until I had started my PhD program, moved away from Charleston, when I was reading Safia Noble's Algorithms of Oppression, that I was confronted with Roof again and saw the tragedy in a new light. So Roof had written a manifesto where he connects his radicalization directly to a Google search for, quote, black on white crime, saying he was, quote, never the same since that day. So PageRank algorithms had directed Roof to a white supremacist website called Council of Conservative Citizens. In her analysis, Noble shows how the role that Google search played showed the role that Google search played in Ruth's ideological development. And she writes, quote, "A straight line cannot be drawn between search results and murder, but we cannot ignore the ways that a murderer such as Dylan Roof, allegedly in his own words, reported that his racial awareness was cultivated online by searching on a concept or phrase that led him to very narrow, hostile, and racist views." So in her analysis, Noble connects the underlying profit motive and implicit epistemology of page ranking, top to bottom, page ranking and search results to what happened with Roof. She writes, quote, "Search results are not tied to a multiplicity of perspectives, and the epistemology of ranking from 1 to 1 million or more sites suggests that what is listed first is likely to be the most credible and trustworthy information available." So, by seeing the Council of Conservative Citizens front and center, top ranked, Roof was involved in a really complex socio-technical web that perhaps, and in his own words, he says, sent him towards radicalization. And this realization, where I unexpectedly, had this trauma brought up reading a text that I didn't know was connected at all to my own life, has driven much of the work that I've done ever since. I wonder things like, how did those machine processes guide or constrain Roof's choices? And knowing how crucial the design of our algorithmic systems is, how might we make them in ways that instead of advancing hate and misinformation, might help us work toward greater equity, understanding, and human flourishing instead? So, with that story, I want to state that AI is never neutral. We build all sorts of biases in it, even when we don't realize it, depending on how we train it, how it is interpreted, even when it's beyond our hands. So I hope that nobody working on those PageRank algorithms intentionally was thinking that something like this, may happen. But the systems that we design are powerful and sometimes have lots of deep impacts on people beyond those that even we can anticipate. But I think we should try. I think we should try to think about all of the ways that our systems are woven into people's lives, even when they do seemingly very simple or seemingly objective things like ranking pages in search results. So PageRank is way more than a number, just like all of these systems are doing way more than just computation. And so I am hoping that all of us can think about that as we grapple with some of the questions about how we should design and use our technology, including things like, what should we build or not? When should we decide, okay, I shouldn't build this thing? How should we build it? How should we apply it? How should we monitor the way that it is functioning and repair harms that arise from it? And whose responsibility is it to do that? So in thinking about these questions, I want to offer you a few different frameworks for ways that we can orient our brains around AI ethics. And the first one is drawing on a concept of thinking of AI as a socio-technical system, not just a technology, but a technology and hardware and software that is deeply imbricated in our social systems and our daily lives. So we have things like hardware, software, companies, and also humans who are doing the training. We have training data, we have laws, we have social kinds of agreements, we have policies. All of these things come together to create what I call socio-technical ethics. And in order, I think, to get to the place where we're practicing data science, AI application ethically, we've got to have three main things. I think we need social systems that support ethical reasoning and ethical application of tools, including in the development of policy and law. We need to have technology that is designed with ethics in mind, because ethics doesn't start at application. We know from decades of research now around yeah, it's wild to say that, but around algorithmic bias, that the way that we train and tune our systems is deeply impactful for their ethical implications. So the ethical design of technology, and then ethical education. So we need to have opportunities for diverse stakeholders to learn about and have a say in the way that our systems are developed and applied. And hopefully, I think if we get all those pillars in place, we can work towards a more socio-technically just society with AI. Some other entry points into AI ethics you may consider in this like really brief little taste of what you might think about in terms of the very broad field of AI ethics. There are lots of people who enter this work from philosophy, and so we can think about how various ethical philosophy lenses can guide us in our decision making. For example, if you take a consequentialist or utilitarian view, you may be thinking about how we tally up the relative risks and benefits of using a technology in a particular way. Or if you take a deontological or rules-based approach, you may be thinking about what rules we need to make to govern this technology for everyone in order to lead to more ethical outcomes. But we have all sorts of different fields who are thinking about concepts in AI ethics in various different ways. So I've got a buddy here at Vanderbilt, Jenny Davis, who is a sociologist, and she thinks about how we need to move from conceptualizing something like AI fairness into thinking about reparation for harms. And so she's got a lot of work from a sociological standpoint there. We have, of course, legal experts. We have mathematical ways to calculate bias and fairness that are also really important here. So it's a really interdisciplinary field. And the picture here we have is, has anyone done the moral machine experiment? I can't see everybody, but hopefully some of you have. And if you haven't, it's this global experiment that folks at MIT did where they had people, it's pretty morbid too, decide who should die basically in a self-driving car in basic various iterations of the trolley problem, which is a traditional thought experiment in philosophy where we ask questions about accountability, responsibility, and taking action versus not taking action and what that means for our moral duties. So in this experiment, the MIT researchers gathered millions of perspectives from folks around the world on what they thought was the right thing to do in various self-driving car scenarios, and they tweak all sorts of details about the story that they set up. So, say those three people in the crosswalk are children. Does that change what the car should do? Do the numbers of people in each setting or who they are or whether they were following the rules matter in the decisions that we make in order to see if there were patterns in how different cultures, for example, do this kind of ethical reasoning. But, this experiment started many years ago. And one thing that I think is really interesting about it is that we now have cars that are engaging in this kind of decision making, maybe not exactly like it, but people's moral beliefs are increasingly built into the technologies that we are using. And so this is a really interesting early experiment to think about how people might view those things differently. So from those, many entry points, of course, we have lots of different kinds of frameworks and tools that we can use to guide our ethical analysis and thinking. Some of them come from governmental sources, like the Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights has been archived. That was the Biden administration's AI ethics effort at policy. And since we've had, several executive orders from Trump with different priorities for how AI should be built. There's the National Institute for Standards and Technology. They have a risk management framework related to AI that gets a lot of traction, that can guide a lot of, especially like corporate applications of AI. If you're in the EU or doing global work, we have the EU AI Act is another legal framework for guiding how AI systems are built and deployed. Deployed. And then things that I think are really important, especially for work with kids, are, we have lots of different white papers and all sorts of guidance from organizations like UNICEF on how AI should be used with and for children, and especially in education, which is my home field. So I have spent many years thinking about these topics, not only by myself, but also with various kinds of students, using artistic creation to elicit their views about what our rights should be related to AI. And they have got a lot of strong opinions about those sorts of things. So over the years, have done projects related to that. And related to coming up with an educator's AI Bill of Rights. This is I did a postdoc at the Engage AI Institute, an AI National Science Foundation AI Institute, where I actually just finished the last round of data collection for an AI ethics computer game that we designed for middle and high school students. So I've spent a lot of time working with educators and students and thinking about what AI ethics should mean for them. And then the final piece of my own story that I want to share with you before I open it up to broader conversation and questions relates to the accountability piece of AI ethics. So there is currently very little requirement to document and share about the way a model functions or how it was created or trained. But there are lots of folks who are arguing that we need these kinds of accountability and transparency mechanisms. So this is one that we came up with for education, is using a specially tailored, what's called a model card, to document the way that the model functions for different kinds of students, for example, and other things like its environmental impact, touching on a lot of the major AI ethics issues that we think are important to share for people who are trying to figure out whether or not they want to use our AI systems in their schools, for example. So in this work, I got to give a shout out really quickly, was done in conjunction with a really wonderful group of practitioner advisors. These are folks from across the country who work in various levels of school administration and even and also still in the classroom, who helped me come up with these AI ethics products over the past few years during my work with Engage AI. And I think that is most of what I wanted to talk to you about today. Although one ethical issue that I think that I haven't touched on just yet, that I think is super important when we're thinking about agents and skills, is thinking about how much we want our agents and our interactions with AI to feel human, and when we want to avoid that. There's a lot of discussion in the education world about children and their relationships, their social relationships with chatbots, and how we want to guide those safely going into the future. So I think those are among the most pressing questions that we can ask about these kinds of technologies as they feel more and more human, and people are increasingly developing human-like attachments to them, is a really interesting area of AI ethics for all of us to watch, I think. All right, I have talked enough. Now I want to open the floor for any questions that you may have, any like ideas you want to throw out there, any conversations that you want to have, maybe about the particular skill or tool that you are working on in your context. If you have questions about those, this is a great opportunity. We've got 46 people here. So this is a great opportunity to get wider kind of stakeholder feedback. If you want, different kinds of perspectives on how you're building something, and what the impact of it may be. So thank you all for hanging tough with me, and yeah, let's hear from you now.
We'll just jump in real quick. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing that with us. This is amazing. I hope people ask lots of questions. We did have one in the chat where someone was wanting to access the model card that you showed, I think on the second to last slide. Is there a place people can find that?
Yes, we published it in a paper, which I will link there. And I'm also happy to share with you like the editable slide of it. But I will do both. And they're also, so our model card isn't the only thing that's out there either. You can use, Twilio actually made this cool system where you can make a nutrition label for your AI. So that's another option. I'll put a link to that in the chat too, but I'll put the paper there too. Thank you for those questions.
Awesome. And I see Mosin, you have your hand up. Sarah, if you're ready for another question.
Yeah, hi
Hi.
Sarah. Thank you so
Hi.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that. It's very thorough. It's probably one of the more maybe the most thorough in 15 minutes that I could get, and really makes me think a lot.
Thank you.
Are your papers, a couple things so I don't have to, I'm driving right now, but are your papers all on like Google Scholar or something that we
Yes.
could find? Okay.
Yes, and I would love nothing more than to share them with you too. So I'm happy to email them.
That's fine. I'm pretty often on there, but I guess I have a lot of like, I look at things as a hedge fund manager, like how the real world is looking at how things are moving in the real world. And what is clear is that there are no guardrails in the next 2.5 years that our government will put on, even if something massive happens in the midterms. And so part of me, you've made it very clear why it's so important to focus on this. And there's a broader category of ethics, or maybe a similar category of responsible AI and whatnot. But part of me says like, we're kind of pushing on a string. It's essential work that you're doing. I've talked to legislators, or various bodies that you mentioned in DC about this, and they're kind of all crossing their fingers and hoping they can last for 2.5 years. But as I think about just what's happened in the 4 years of taking the Vanderbilt summer school and how fast things have evolved, I'm scared to think of what they're going to look like from this ethics standpoint or lack of guardrails in 2 years. So that was more of a comment, but just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I share your worry. But I also think that so in that like kind of 3-pillar model, we've got policy and law as just one piece. It's a really important piece, and I think we need to work on that a lot. However, I think there are a lot of things that we can do without like moving the levers of law and policy in the meantime to make sure that we are working towards ethical application and development of tools. And like, the lever that I like to pull on mostly is education. I think that that is a super important, like kind of bottom-up strategy, especially when the top-down strategies are maybe not keeping up with the pace of technology um, or politically entrenched in ways that we might not match with how we want to see technology applied. But it's a slow change, and it is a tough one. So I think there's not, of course, like there's no answer. There's no like satisfying answer to that other than that I think that we need to be like trying to move all the levers that we can to work towards more ethical AI, and that includes from our from our own, if we're tech developers, working towards that, if we're educators, doing the things that we can do in that realm as well. And I do think, the EU AI Act, I think, is important too. Not even in the absence of federal legislation in the U.S. around um, AI and a lack of general like federal guidance for AI governance here. We do have lots of companies working internationally, and so in those settings, you still have to adhere to like things like the EU AI Act. So I think even though it's not like directly governing what we do, it still affects how companies can operate in a way that we'll see um, in a way that we have already seen and hopefully will continue seeing in terms of providing some kinds of guidelines for how we develop and implement these products. But I think yeah, I think you're right to worry. I am worried. I think so basically, long answer short, there is not a satisfying answer. I think that we need to work on both top down and bottom up approaches to AI governance, and that we all can do that in our with our various positions of power and mouthpieces towards the world, but that we also need to be thinking about how we might want to build legislation and policy around it too, and can look towards places that have robust legislation like the EU as potential models for how we might want to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up, like I think the hardest part for me is like the lack of concrete levers that I can pull. So like you giving us, some even from bottoms up or sideways, maybe we don't have much push from top down would be helpful, or even like now I'm thinking we build a skill to say, hey, given my background, what are the levers that are maybe custom to me that I could pull, is what you're making me think of.
That could be a very interesting experiment. The other thing is, if you work at a hedge fund, then figuring out how you can like work on the AI policy there to make it something that is that aligns with the beliefs and your hopes for how these kinds of tools can shape your industry, for example. I think those things are really important too.
Yeah, that's true. I'm no longer in this space. I'm more in the healthcare space, but there's equally important
Oh
ethics
yeah.
issues there that I'm working on. So thanks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Sarah, thank you for your presentation. I want to touch base, and I think you mentioned it briefly, on the environmental impact of such wide use of AI and that ethical aspect of it. I don't think we've talked about it enough. What advice do you have for us using these technologies to make sure that we're using them ethically, with respect to the environment?
Ooh, that is such a good question. And it is actually a really hard one to answer because while we know that there are deep and increasingly troubling environmental impacts of widespread AI use and like data center production in general, um, it's really hard to get good information about the scale of the impact. It is like deeply difficult to quantify the environmental impact of different models. And another complicating factor is that the scale of impact from what is required to create a model and what is required to query a model. Like every time you query, it's a small, small impact, versus like training and developing them is giant. And so there's also, folks will say like, well, now that it's made, the big impact is now we're just talking about little drops in the bucket, which is, you know, a bad pun if you're thinking about water impact. But so it's difficult to quantify, although people are trying. I am
Yeah, and Miranda actually has been doing some work exactly in this area.
Yeah,
And
sorry,
now,
I'm over here like shivering.
Miranda, I was just gonna bring up Mike Vandenberg, who I think who
Yes,
you're
I work
working
with.
with, right? Okay, so I'll pass it to you in just a moment. So I've just recently started working with a professor over at the law school who Miranda also has worked with, on thinking about environmental impact of AI. In particular, what we are thinking about together is how we might build AI practices for students. So there, so many millions of students who are using AI every day. How might we teach them some AI literacy related to environmentally friendly practices around it? And as part of that work, so Mike and Ethan and his team, along with Miranda, have been working on the quantification piece. And so, yeah, Miranda, will you give us an update? Because last I heard from Mike, it was like, well, we did this paper where there were 10 different calculators and they all had like magnitudes of difference. And also like quantifying, the impact on potable water is complete. Yeah. Okay. So please take it away.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Yes. So my main projects are on AI and the environment. I've got two going on right now. One of them is quantifying the impact of AI. We're looking at specific models and calculating exactly how much energy they are using. It is very, very difficult because we started this about a year ago, thinking that the data was maybe already out there, but as you heard from Sarah, it's not. It depends on many things, and I could talk for hours about this. But anyway, I'm working with the Vanderbilt Law Lab as well as some people at University of North Carolina. We have an equation to estimate how much energy use is out of each model. And so right now we are running those calculations and we'll hopefully have results. We'll hopefully have results soon. Some other things that I just want to drop in is reasoning models, we think, use a lot more energy. So like, when we're using this kind of stuff with skills and Claude Code and all of that, be cognizant of that if that's something you're concerned about, as well as water use. But something else that we're finding is this is within a larger conversation of talking about our digital footprint as a society, because watching an hour of Netflix uses an incredibly intensive amount of resources. I mean, more than your query to ChatGPT, more than your query to Claude. So I think this brings up a very important thing that people have not been talking about until now. So I'm thrilled to talk about this. Please email me or reach out or something, and I can send over some papers. So anyway, yes, I can say so much more, but I want Sarah to keep talking.
And I'll put in there too. And Sarah, you brought this up. There's a difference between the training the model and inferencing with the model. So with the training of the model, I think that there's some real ethical considerations there too, which is you have companies that are training extraordinarily large models, believing that's going to give them a competitive edge. And it may not. And it is that mindset of larger must be better, and that's you always want to have the largest model to do these things. When there are models, that have taken tremendous resources. So take the XAI in Memphis. They had what 30, a little bit less than 30 gas turbines running to actually power Colossus One, to actually do the training of a model, which really is not going to be used. It's already behind the times. It was large, but it's just not that much better than other models. And so huge environmental impact to train a model which is not going to be used. Remember what I said before about small models, even very small language models, augmented with skills can perform as well as the largest models. So now this becomes not only a statement and a consideration of cost, of token cost, but but environmental impact as well. If you want to be a good steward, then you find a way to get the results that you need on the smallest possible model. Because then the model might even be able to run locally. I run a model which is the equivalent for certain jobs as Opus 4.7 on my laptop, right? So that is obviously not using a great amount of power and using no water because I'm running it locally. But I had to design it that way, and I had to write design a skill to do that. So yeah, these are considerations that we need to have at sort of the national level, those conversations, about what we're going to permit, how we allow it, all the way to the personal. Once we have something that we know that we're going to be using on the regular, let's do it responsibly.
Thank you for jumping in. I can't wait to talk to you more about this. I think we're at time, aren't we?
Well, we're at time, but we go into office hours for the next 30 minutes. So you're welcome to stay if you want to continue answering questions, but you certainly don't have to.
I will I'll do whatever folks want. If people are questioned out, I can cede the time to office hours, but I'm also happy to answer anything lingering.
All right, well, folks, thank you very much for all of your time, for your attention, for your great questions, and your work over the breakout session. So we're going to move into office hours now. As soon as this video is available, I'll do the processing using a skill and make it available up on the repo. Next week, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into using Claude Code and actually creating solutions there. Also, depending on the questions that we have and the other things we want to cover, we might be moving into our cohorts as early as Thursday of next week. But we'll let you know sort of where we go. We'll know by the end of Tuesday where we're going to be landing. We're open for questions, so any questions you might have, happy to answer questions that you might have. And also I'll make a quick selling point. We just got approval on Friday of last week for our Masters of AI program. So we got approval. This is going to be based on really addressing generative AI. It's meant for a broad swath of people. We'd love to have you join us for it. It's going to be an actual master's degree. It's going to be virtual. It's going to be online. It's going to be synchronous with asynchronous components. We're going to be starting in the fall. So happy to share more information that you have about that. It should be eligible if you're at Vanderbilt for the tuition benefit. All right. Thank you all.
I had two little questions. One was kind of as a tie-in to the conversation on AI ethics. I dropped the question in the chat. I'm not sure it's entirely salient for this kind of a group, but I do have a lot of questions and interest in how we're applying ethical standards to things like military use for AI for any of their many ways of doing so. And then I had kind of a technical question to Jesse about I've been playing around with using Obsidian notebooks within my project folders and having a lot of what appears to be success there. Have you explored something like that, or is this am I barking up the right tree?
No, I think you absolutely are. I'll answer the second one, and then I think the other one's a great conversation to have. The second one, which is around Obsidian, think about with Obsidian, you have this interesting thing where, so it's on one level, it's a note-taking app, but at the other level, it's a way to actually make connections between notes and to create sort of a knowledge structure. So whenever you have knowledge and have it structured, this is the essence of curation. So that means if you're using an AI agent, so you could absolutely point Cowork to this or Claude Code. And now you have a great additional structure that really enhances that agent harness. It's outside of the harness, right? But it's a great way for the model to be aware of what's salient, what's important, what the connections are. I think it's an amazing tool. I use that absolutely to explore new areas when I have multiple areas to explore. I think it's a great approach.
Yeah, my next thing is to build a skill to have it bootstrap the Obsidian Vault, because I've been using it for a couple of project management things where I don't build any notes in there. It's doing all of its memory making entirely in Markdown.
Yes. And especially if you're able to have it make the connections. Actually, there's the Claude harness now. It does something which and others are adopting this too, where it dreams. So when it's off cycle for a certain amount of time, it actually goes through and begins to synthesize and create connections, move things into memory. And it does that when you're not asking it to do anything, but it is active. And this is a way for it to, similar to what we do. When we sleep, we actually, that's where we do a lot of the synthesis and moving ideas into long-term memory. So yeah, it's a very powerful way to extend the capability of your models, and a low cost way too. I mean, you're not moving a whole bunch of tokens back and forth, which is interesting, and then it makes it much more efficient in the future to solve problems.
Yeah, really enjoying it, especially because it's intentionally a pivot to local inference to keep everything on there.
Yep.
And I just scrolled back up to see your question about military and AI, which is not my particular area of expertise, but we have folks at Vanderbilt who are deeply expert in this. We've got the National Security Center folks. There was this recent Foreign Affairs article that came out that was written by some Vanderbilt faculty talking about AI and warfare in ways actually so interesting to think about what deterrence means in the age of AI, and also for things like, weapons targeting systems, autonomous warfare, which have been, I just finished the book Project Maven, which is a deep dive into the U.S. Uses of AI in the military, and is a fascinating read. But again, not my particular area of expertise. So we do have people on campus who are like in the national conversation about international conversation about what AI and it means for warfare.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question.
Hey Jesse, and everyone, I have a question. Like, as we sit here, like 2025 was supposed to be the year of the agent, and maybe it's probably more like 2026.
Yeah.
What would you say is, let's just say, then I keep thinking of memory and other things. What do you think? Let's say if you fast forward 6 months from now, what are you guys spending your time on to be prepared for 6 months? I guess 6 months from now.
Well, a couple of things. One is I do think that we're going to see the public release of models like Mythos, and what's happening with those is very likely what's called a looped transformer. So a looped transformer is the same architecture that you have before, but you actually intentionally loop within one of the layers that we talked about before that has the attention and has a multi-layer perceptron. This gives the model ability to have much more cohesive, coherent, long-running representations across the layers, which means that it has a much longer and coherent ability to manage things, tasks over the long term. So I think that you're going to see really advanced capabilities in agents. So I think that we're going to be thinking about how that translates to all the different areas where we could apply AI. So the trick is going to be to expose the tools and the data and to phrase the problems in order to try to tackle them with these very long horizon tools. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of development around harnesses and supporting memory and frameworks. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that. Small models are getting more and more capable. So I think that's going to be interesting using a local and on-device inference. I have no idea what that means to have a looped transformer, small little language model that is looped. What is that going to be capable of? I have no idea. But yeah, 2025, we eked in just at the end in December. That's when agents really started to take off. So technically 2025, but really it was January when people began to take stock and make assessments of where we were. And there was an interesting comment earlier about, when we reach AGI. Actually, by every measure that we've ever come up with, we're there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it is human level, it is AGI. So the other thing that we're going to start dealing with is something which is not model based, not harness. It's going to be the perception and the apprehension that we have achieved this. And I think that's going to start being more and more people are going to become aware of that. And so you're going to find, I think, stronger pushback, people being very uncomfortable, and people really needing to learn more, to discuss, talk about, and think about what this means, for their own sense of self. So I think that's going to be in the next year. We're going to start seeing, we've already had marches against AI. We have people who are, very concerned, and sometimes they can't even name why they're concerned, but that's going to be work that we're going to be having to do within organizations, at universities. That's going to be an important series of conversations for us to have.
I mean, maybe that is what the next 6 to 12 months. It's here now. It's getting. My tone is getting very aggressive with people who are asking me, "Oh, what do you teach me about AI?" In the sense of like, I almost, unless you're willing to take the red pill here, I'm almost not sure I have the energy or the bandwidth to help. Like, unless you're able to jump in with both feet, because it's not it's going to be very uncomfortable.
These are different kinds of conversations than we're used to having, right? Compassion, listening, understanding, recognizing that sometimes the conversation that you think that you're having is not the conversation that you're having. I've had conversations with people who were concerned about about energy use, right? And for some people, that is their main concern, right? But for others, that is serving as a proxy for a discomfort that they feel. So even when we talk about, okay, as Miranda pointed out, hey, you watch something on Netflix, that's an enormous amount of power that's going into that. Compare that to the prompt that you're running. But that's not it. That doesn't solve the problem. That doesn't make them any more comfortable. They still have the issue. And then you begin to realize it's something else. So we've got to figure out how to have these conversations. Not everybody has to have the conversations, but know that there's a lot. It says much more about how we identify our self-worth and how we measure ourselves rather than about the technology. It's a mirror held up to us, and a lot of us have to be ready for these conversations.
I will say, just since I was mentioned, that I do still worry about the environmental impact, but I also worry about
it's for
many
real.
things. Yeah,
Yes,
it's a real
yeah.
thing. It is a
It's a
real
real
thing,
thing.
and
It's not just
I
proxy.
do sympathize. Yeah, I do sympathize when people worry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was struck by how many conversations though was that didn't help. You know what I mean? It was just like there's something deeper too.
You're saying that the conversations about bringing up, hey, the environmental impact, they didn't care. You're saying, or it didn't?
That wasn't. I mean, that was that even when we
Not
had the good conversation about that, but that wasn't really that wasn't the issue for them. There was something deeper that was discomforting. So I did a semester-long work with our divinity school on AI. And it was about the practice of the use of AI, but the conversations we also had were around this comfort and discomfort in what this means. So I think those are deep conversations that we're going to have to have, and it's not just going to be the computer scientists having them. We're going to have them in the organizations. I'm so glad the divinity school is so forward with that, because these are conversations we're going to have in all different kinds of places.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we're going to have to run into a redefinition of what AGI means. Jesse, I know the reference to we have it here is really in, to our benchmarks and to our understanding of the capability and the capacity of it. But I think for a lot of folks, especially people who are very very emotionally invested in AI. There's a undefined sense that it's going to be soulful or operating on its own.
We
Or
wanted intelligence to be like us.
yes, yes,
We
and I
really
think there's going to be a
did,
lot
and
of
it's not.
disappointment. Yes, I think there's a lot of
Right.
disappointment and dissatisfaction that yes, we got to a set of large language models that are as good, as well connected as a good smart human mind, but it didn't suddenly bootstrap into something new and sci-fi. So we must not be there, and we need to, buy another billion GPUs and try again.
Yeah. Yeah, which is you can kind of look at Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and 42. Okay, we got our answer. But really we honestly really need to ask, what is the question, right? What is it that we want? What is it that we were hoping for? Other questions and comments? Yeah.
As everyone knows, I can just keep asking questions. I think and this one probably is always recurring, but it's getting more and more severe with respect to how can the educate like the universities, let's set aside K through 12. They have an immediate thing they have to solve, right? I think the way I think about it is corporations don't know what their workforce is going to look like in 3 years. So they're not hiring. Universities, because one can debate what the point of a university is, whether it's to, the liberal arts or whether it's to get someone a job. But regardless, the cost is too high. So bottom line is, it's already defined. You have to get a job. The university has to help students get a job. And yet they're chasing, moving or unknown goalposts that corporations are setting because they don't know them themselves. So in the immediate term, as the father of someone who's about to go into college, I don't know. I don't really know that there's really any reason to be confident that universities as a whole will figure it out, or across their it's too much to ask for them, I feel like. So it's more a question of, I know Vanderbilt, you guys are doing a lot. But a lot of it is the onus of the professors to buy in and for the students to buy in, which is hard.
Keep in mind that the challenge here, though, is not so think about what allows you to use and leverage AI, right? So think about it. So we've talked about it. You have to curate the content. You have to define your problem well. You have to know what you're actually solving. You have to know what's relevant to actually include. These are critical thinking skills. These are exactly the skills that universities teach, regardless of whether it's in CS or philosophy or history. Or this is all about understanding what content is and how to think critically and how to use tools to solve problems. I think
you're
universities
right.
are more relevant than ever, because now we have the AI tools that allow us to get to the problems, right? We're hugely accelerated, but only if you know what to ask, only if you know what you want to do.
You've just described like the AP US history exam or the AP English literature exam. That's actually an interesting point.
Well, I also think one of the things as educators we're bumping into is the pervasive, almost culture-wide marketing around AI, that it's easy, that it does it for you, that a lot of the kind of corporate implementations are running into failure or a lack of return on their investment, is the salesmanship of everyone who's running these foundation model organizations. But it's not really that easy. That it takes an understanding of the underlying process. It takes an understanding of your data, and harder than that for many businesses and most people, myself included, having a thorough understanding of the actual problem you're trying to solve.
That's it.
Versus this pervasive sense of this is easy. This is the old Staples easy button. I don't even need to think about my problem. I just need to copy and paste all my personal data into a thing, and then pay for the tokens, and everything works well, and I don't even need to proofread it. And that's a tough place to be, is to be that person who's not saying no, but saying yes, but, and this is harder than you think, and we need to really start from the beginning and build up.
I like being able to talk about skills. I like being able to move that conversation into bringing in the expertise of the person. I love the research, which is showing pretty definitively that skills greatly improve the capability of models, but only if those skills reflect the expertise of the person who's building them. Because then that centers the person, that centers their expertise, and it really puts the lie to the statement that it's just easy. It's like, well, it makes some things easier. Absolutely, the things that we shouldn't have been doing in the very beginning. We were not practicing to the top of our license when we were copying and pasting to fill in a form, or copying and pasting, or using this other software in a way to allow us to do our kind of work, when really what we need to be able to do is zero in and ask the question we wanted to ask.
I also find the more that I work with skills and with agents, mostly through Claude right now, but I'm kind of learning more about it to do on other platforms, is how little I like working with it through a chat bot interface. I almost feel that while the chatbot easy mode interface is really what got the bulk of society to work with these tools, it's really it feels like a clunky and imprecise interface. And I'm really enjoying the more I connect it to either automated tasks, looped tasks, things that I don't need to drop what I'm doing and look at my computer or look at my phone for it to be working on my behalf. But it goes back into, it takes a lot of work to really set that up in a way that it's going to be doing that, offline.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And even I think the interfaces are going to have to evolve even more, right? We're starting to get there. But somebody asked me about 6 months. The other thing which is going to be happening over 6 months is we're going to be figuring out how to actually deal with skills like within organizations, because those are company-wide resources that are critically important. But we're going to figure out how we're going to be managing those. Who in the organization is going to be responsible for for having the skills repository, for making sure, that they are monitored, updated, checked for security, checked for completeness. It's stuff we couldn't do before. So we have the talent management, the HR folks. It's almost in their wheelhouse because they have been talking about the skills of the individuals. Could be IT, but with IT, you run the risk of you tend to identify the set of solvable problems to be those set of problems for which there's a computable function you can make for them, when in actuality, with AI, that is much broader. So I think we're gonna start seeing solutions being proposed, thinking about how this interacts with the structure of an organization, because they're just so important.
Well, I think we also might run into some ethical considerations around those same skills, where the best person to be building a skill in an organization is the expert there. And what happens when you've either had your expert working for long enough that they or someone who's looking at the product of their work can build a skill to replace them, and mean that you don't need to hire the next one when they leave. What happens when I want to say lowercase s soul is poured into your job, and that turns into a recurring skill that takes minimal time, effort, and money to maintain.
Right.
Who maintains that nebulous ownership over those skills?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and those are tough questions, right? I mean, because smart organizations that want to have buy-in from their employees will find a way to recognize and compensate them for sharing of their expertise, and will understand that they can grow more, grow organically, and do more if they don't try to just get their AIs up to a certain point and then fire the people, because trying to build a system which is entirely autonomous is extraordinarily difficult. You can get 90%, 95% of the way, but having that human to actually say you've drifted, no, this is outside, extraordinarily difficult to get the AI to actually pick up on that. Um, do you want to have a person who's been able to do practice at the top of their license maybe 10% of the time? Would you like them to be able to do that and be happier and be more engaged and do that 80%, 85% of the time by using skills? Or do you want to take the risk and try to get some of the skills and then fire them or never hire anybody else to do that? I mean, these are short-sighted solutions that people could make, decisions people could make. Do I see
Jesse,
proprietary? Oh, go ahead.
one favor to ask, when you edit this video, please keep the Q&A included, because there's a lot of good stuff that you and Max are bringing up that I'd like to revisit and think about and just mine effectively.
No, I agree. So I would say let's go ahead and for a Claude 4.7 that's going to be processing this later, let's go ahead and split this out to a separate QA session, which has as the main topics each of the things. Do go ahead and mention the people if there's anything which you believe is sensitive. I don't believe there's anything which is sensitive, but if there is anything, go ahead and raise that up and ask for permission for them from the user first. All right, Ida, you had a question. Do you see skills being proprietary in the future? I do. It's going to be tough to do that because they're plain text, but they are human authored as opposed to being AI authored. And so that means that they could be protectable IP, but it's plain text. And so it's going to be, it's going to be, I have no idea where copyright law is going to go on this. They're so behind. Oh, go ahead, Aya.
Oh, because I can see this as like companies like making skills proprietary and then making, like selling it as a service or a product, if they haven't already.
Yeah, I think maybe they already have.
Yeah, I can see that. Totally see that. Yeah. But like, would that be under like, if it's all under Claude, like, wouldn't it be like, how does that work? Like, would Claude own them? Because like they would be able to see these skills, I would imagine.
Well, if skills are an open standard or effectively an open standard because they're so easily parsable by other frameworks, I could see with a little bit of adaptation with our current legal system, it not really being patentable, but them being trademarkable.
Yes.
That's probably the way that someone might go about doing it, but you'd never know until the first time it's challenged.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because, if they're proprietary enough and hidden enough that until you see it and realize that it was your words in the skill, it's tough to bring a suit.
Right. I think there's already been accusations of people using skills to essentially copy open source repositories and open source projects and then put it behind a paywall. And the people have no idea that, their open source project was essentially unlawfully like copied and then put behind a paywall.
Rewrite it in TypeScript.
Right. Yeah. So, it it already is kind of an issue, and I think we're just on the brink of figuring out what to do.
All right, folks, I'm going to have to hop off for another meeting. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for all the questions. Miranda, you can keep this open for another minute if you'd like to, but I'll just have to skedaddle myself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, I just had a quick question I just posted in the chat. I was just trying to understand if Vanderbilt employees have a higher access or if it's just like the free access that you can get.
Yeah, sorry, I realized I was totally like answering your question, but I was muted. So,
Oh.
so thank you. No, so you don't. So we're just using like Claude Pro that you just buy from Claude Pro, and there's no Vanderbilt Claude. I think Maxwell maybe put in earlier that there are some labs that have some sort of private agreement with Claude, and then there's the Vanderbilt AI thing. But no, we're not pushing any sort of like Vanderbilt version of that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to access the Claude inference via a chat interface, yeah, Amplify, Vanderbilt.ai is your only free option as a for everyone. But there's no
So,
access through that to the Claude Code, Claude Desktop, Claude Cowork.
and does Amplify do the similar things like what we've been talking about with Claude, or no?
You can only use it to chat. So there's no Cowork, there's no Claude Code, none of that.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
some interesting features there, but it's not what you'd call an agentic kind of platform.
Okay. I started with the free version for Claude because I wanted to see if I could have it do what I needed to do, which is help create daily schedules for our early childhood school. But like being able to just say like these people are out today, this person's out sick, and you know what I mean, and have it form schedules for it. And one of the things that I did was tried to make a skill for that. Um, but then as I was trying to generate it, it was like you've already used your free uh
Yeah.
uses for today. So I think I'm just trying to see if it works before I check in with my department about like purchasing the higher version.
Yeah.
Um,
So
One,
yeah.
yeah. And I don't want to
So
step on you. I would just be very careful if you're using student or employee data in it that just a regular Claude Pro account might not be safe.
right.
Yeah.
when you mean by data,
Like names.
it's a first name only, is that too much data?
Well, it depends on what you're giving it access to. If you're just chatting with it and I have a bunch of generic names,
I
that's
just gave it
gray area.
access to I just gave it access to the like a template document that has just first name and like first name and then like they work from this time to this time. But if you all feel like that's too much data, then I will reconsider that.
I would, as a security guy, I would just always urge caution. I would definitely check out Vanderbilt AI through Amplify. You may not have access to all of the agentic platform that we've been working with here, but it is approved up through, I believe, level 3 data, which means you're unlikely to come into any issues with that. And it can do a lot of this work, and especially you can connect it because of that data safety. Can connect it to things like your SharePoint or your Outlook. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then another thing that I'll throw in is that you can author the skill, like, because it's just a file. And if you want to just go ahead and finish editing, like you ran out of tokens, if you just want to finish editing yourself and try to get it as good as you can put a skill into a chat model, and it can sometimes use it. The Vanderbilt AI one is just a little limited on what it can do, but there are also tools in Amplify, like Max was saying, to connect to like Outlook and all of that. And so I would just look into that. But no, it is different from the Claude Code thing, and there's no Vanderbilt solution for that right now. So that was a lot of
Okay.
information,
Okay.
but I hope that helped.
No, that's helpful. I think I'm just trying to understand it. It sounds like it's possible if using Claude that we should not use it for this type of thing, because we have first names in it. Is that's kind of what you were saying a little bit?
I think if you wanted to build a test run with it completely anonymized in order to kind of do proof of concept and then to go to your department and say, maybe we need to look at what the other options are around the university for getting an access, some form of access to Claude in a data approved manner. That's not a bad way to do it. I would just err on the side of building your test with completely made up names and information just to avoid, the appearance of running afoul.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, good question. There's a lot to keep track of. I'm not a data security expert, so thank you, Max, for
Yeah, that's
helping.
helpful. Okay.
Great.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and hop off as well. Thanks so much, y'all, for your questions and hanging out. It's always fun. And see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.
Bye.